In this episode of Where the Pavement Ends, Terrell and I share how adventure forges deep friendships, why you don't need a perfect plan, and how the Guatemalan jungle pushes you to grow. We take you on a 1,000-mile overland trip. We're talking jungle tracks, ancient Maya ruins, and unforgettable moments. I've linked 2 YouTube videos from the trip in the description. Buckle up, you won't want to miss this one. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. That's episode 2 of Where the Pavement Ends. If you missed episode 1, I'll drop a link in the description and at the end of this video so you can catch up. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the heart of adventure, and I mean deep. We'll talk about how Tara and I first crossed paths, trade some stories from our early meetups, and then take you on an overland journey through the jungles of Guatemala. This isn't just any trip. We're talking winding mountain roads, ancient Maya ruins, roaring howler monkeys, fresh jaguar tracks, and amazing people that we meet along the way. I'm your host, Vince Brody, joined once again by my good friend and co-host, Terrell Graham. Terrell, welcome back, man. I see you've upgraded to a new microphone. Looking super official now. How's it going, bro?
Hey, I'm feeling great, man. Yeah, after we wrapped up episode 1, I jumped on Facebook Marketplace and I started searching for a new mic. And I came across this one. The price was too hard to pass up, man. So I jumped on it, and yeah, here we are. So hopefully it helps out the community. And then I'm also using my iPhone now as my webcam. So hopefully, these small changes, improvements, help us out, man.
Well, dude, not only are you looking good today, but you sound good, man. So that's awesome, man. You gotta love Marketplace. Always a deal waiting to be found. As you can tell, I did some decorating myself after seeing the background in that first podcast. I was like, man, I gotta up my game here. So just threw up some stuff that I bought while living in other countries. But yeah, man, what do you say? You ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it. How did you want to start today?
Well, I was thinking, like any good story, there are main characters, and right now that's you and me. So in episode 1, we introduced the vision for the podcast, and I think just to build the character plot and get people to know us a little bit better, I figured in this episode 2, we could share like how you and I became friends, talk a little bit about some of our early adventures, and then jump into a little jungle adventure in Guatemala. How's that sound?
Oh yeah, dude, that sounds great, man. So let me take a first shot at this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? I can't remember who reached out to who first. I think it was definitely on either it was on one of the forums. Back in the day, that's what everyone were using. Either you sent me a DM or I sent you a DM, but it was definitely the summer of 2012. At the time, I was driving an Army Green 2013 Toyota FJ Cruiser. It was lifted, had some 33-inch tires on it, a few other things, and I bought it exactly that way from a Toyota dealership. And at the time, you were rolling around in a 2011 Army Green FJ Cruiser as well, but it was a Nessie edition. And shout out to anyone who knows what a Nessie edition is. You're a true enthusiast right there.
That's
And
true.
your truck also had some nice goodies on it, Old Man Emu suspension, and as well as some 33s.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, Nessie is, let's see if I get this right, not so special edition, if I remember
Yeah,
that correctly.
that's it.
It was like this midway between a trail edition and the regular FJ. And story goes that the Nessie was produced when the tsunami hit and they couldn't finish the trail package. And so that's why they kind of released it half done. But yeah, man, that sounds right. I remember you had one of the very first rooftop tents I'd ever seen, complete with an annex. I didn't even know they sold these things in the U.S. at that time. And man, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. In fact, my first thought when I saw it was, man, this dude knows what he's doing. And that kind of became like a running joke between the two of us ever since. So like anytime you or I see like an awesome vehicle build that we just love, or someone ripping down a mountain bike trail, or even if I'm snowboard shredding, if someone's just killing it, we usually call out, man, that dude looks like he knows what he's doing. So yeah, dude, that just kind of became a running joke between the two of us.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. My first thought about you was the same. I remember thinking, and this young cat travels the world, has a built up rig basically with the entire ARV package catalog thrown on it. It was awesome.
Keep going, man. You know, I love hear I love hearing that that positive affirmation. So, but no,
Yeah.
seriously, I do love me some ARB. You can't beat the reliability and durability of their gear. I mean, both of my current rigs, I mean, I still got the Patrol, obviously, but both of my rigs are decked out in ARB. We'll get to that another time when we talk about our build philosophies and our vehicles. But yeah, man, it sounds like we stalked each other on the forums for a bit. And, you know, I kind of miss those days, you know, when people were really engaged on the forums. I don't know about you, man, but the discourse just seemed a little friendlier, a little bit more helpful. Plus, the forums were, you know, they were more like more laser focused on being topic specific. So the conversations just stayed centered around, you know, someone had a question about something. And there was always a moderator, right? So, man, so you acted up, you were kicked out. I mean, you were gone.
Yeah, yeah. And I still check, on Expedition Portal, and I poke around some of the other forums from time to time. And those communities are still going strong. Definitely not as they used to be, but they're still there, which is something I appreciate. But anyway, man, back to the early days, right? After the few forum exchanges, we finally ended up meeting, of all places, at a rest stop on our way to our very first, or the very
That's right.
first, Mid Atlantic Overland Festival in
Yep.
PA.
Yep.
And not long after that, we ended up going to the very first Overland Expo East, which took place out in Asheville, North Carolina. And then from there, we spent time going to Red Cloud Off Road Park in Woodbridge.
Oh, man.
Um, and then, unfortunately, before it closed down. And then we also spent quite a bit of time going out to places like Shoe Creek and then also Flagpole. And then all of a sudden, man, you left the country.
Man, I remember Red Cloud. Yeah, that place was crazy. Totally cool. I forgot about that place. I just remember hitting it up with you, and I don't know if you remember the guy Tony with the silver FJ.
Hmm.
He used to
Yep.
rip that trail up. But those were good times, man. We were deep in the FJ world back then. And yeah, just to your point, I had just gotten back from Afghanistan when we met for the first time at that rest stop. And then a few months later, I was off again to other places, man. First Zimbabwe, then I found myself in Palestine, South Sudan of all places. And then I was in Kenya. But it wasn't until I moved to Guatemala that we really connected. So this is now around 2014, probably about 2 years after we left. I think you were getting ready to head to South Korea at the time, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's right. I was basically, let's see here. So I was in South Korea, um, and then right before I went to Guatemala, I got reassigned to upstate New York. And it was around that same time frame. I went through a couple different vehicles. I had a silver Toyota 4Runner, and then I kind of migrated away from SUVs, and I got my very first truck, which was a Tacoma, a 2016 Tacoma. And I only got it because I wanted to put a four wheel camper on it, and that was around 2015.
Yeah, man, I remember that 4Runner and the Tacoma and the four-wheel camper. So you'd upgraded from a rooftop tent. Actually, I think you might have even been sleeping in the back of your 4Runner at the time. Just went all you just up level to that four-wheel camper, which is still pretty cool. I still had my FJ at that time, and I actually tried to drive it to Guatemala. I made it as far as Austin, Texas, and that same morning, literally on my way to McAllen to cross into Mexico, I get a call from my company, and the instructions were just super clear. They said, "We don't care if you're on vacation, you are not driving to Guatemala." So I turned around and headed straight for Big Bend. I spent a couple of days there, and yeah, and then I just drove back to Virginia before heading over to Guatemala.
Yeah, man. First off, Big Ben is next level, right?
Yep.
Easily one of my favorite national parks. Is between its remoteness and the international dark sky certification, it just feels like you're on another planet down there. It's truly amazing. But but hold up, before we get into the Guatemala trip, we got to talk about why you weren't allowed to drive there. I mean, You were literally at the border, and then,
Yeah.
people drive there all the time. What happened?
Yeah, man. And, one of the reasons why I was driving down there is because at that time I owned a 135-pound Rhodesian Ridgeback. And so, I mean, the best way to get down there was in my FJ, and he was my security. But yeah, man, I remember it was an insurance thing. I mean, technically I was relocating for work, and since that meant driving through Mexico, it just wasn't authorized. Basically my company stance was, yeah, nice idea, but we're not covering it if something goes wrong. So instead of making the drive myself, I had a friend's company transport the FJ down to Guatemala. And a few months later, you finally made the trip to visit me there. And man, I think that's where the real adventure begins.
Yeah, man. I had been following your posts, seeing the FJ pop up all in all these wild locations down there. And when you said, "Hey, come on down and we'll do a run," I could not say no. That was something that I was definitely going to do.
Oh man, dude, I was so excited when you said yes to the invite, and I mean, really, that was the start of our multi-day trips together because, prior to that Guatemala trip, we'd been limited to sort of weekend warrior type camping and overlanding, right? Those trips to Shoe Creek and Flagpole. I mean, although they were awesome, it wasn't anything like what we were about to do in Guatemala. So when you landed in Guatemala City, dude, before you even shook off the jet lag, I mean, it's not a long trip, but still, you're traveling internationally. Like we were on the road. I think we were both just so excited for the adventure waiting ahead of us.
Yeah, yeah. Remind me again, what was the name of the town? The where you were calling base home at the time?
Quetzaltenango. I know that's a mouthful.
Man, I ain't gonna be able to say that. Come on. But yeah, that's when I first met Eliseo. He was the caretaker who came with the house. So weird to say that, but Eliseo is such an awesome guy. He's become such a good friend to you and myself as well. And he's even joined you in Honduras recently when you were down there. And I
Yeah.
also met the patrol for the first time. And I'm just gonna say it, man, dude, that yellow, that was something else.
Yeah, man. It was supposed to be military sand, if you can believe it, reminiscent of the old Africa Land Cruisers, but instead it came back looking like mustard and mayonnaise. I don't know what they did to that thing. It was nowhere near my expectations. But just a quick note on Quetzaltenangos for our viewers. If you don't know this, in Guatemala, anytime there is a tenango at the end of a city, that means village. So Quetzal is the national bird, and then tenango is village. So Quetzaltenango is the land of the Quetzal, essentially. But yeah, just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I remember that. Um, the patrol ran like a beast, man. So I let it slide for being that yellow
That
color. But
mustard mayo.
uh, anyway, from there I remember we hit the road to Samuk Champay. It was hours of mountain switchbacks, foggy ridges, and little roadside stalls selling fresh tortillas, and also strong coffee enough to keep you awake for a week.
That's right, man. And that Riverside camp at Savu Champay was something else. Man, I love that place. We didn't have time to really hike to the main pools because there's an overlook where you could see all the turquoise water, but we still did see some of the turquoise water near the place we stayed at.
Yeah, it was truly a perfect spot. That sound of the river rushing, the rushing water at night. Then in the morning, we did hike down to one of the turquoise pools. It was just an unreal experience, man. And after that, we ended up heading north to Yaxhá, and those backcountry single lane roads were crazy fun to drive. But honestly, I think that one of the highlights for me was climbing up to the top of one of the Mayan temples and seeing the lake surrounded by endless jungle. Not as crowded as Tikal, but just as impressive.
Yeah, man. Yasha is, and I'm proud of you for saying it correctly, man. Yasha. But yeah, man, that place is awesome. Like you said, it's less crowded than Tikal. It has a completely different energy to it. In fact, all of the Maya sites carry their own unique feel. Yaxha was once one of the largest Maya cities. It had over 500 structures, including 9 temple pyramids. There's a twin pyramid complex and a causeway network that connected it to nearby sites like Nakum and El Naranjo. We tried to go down Naranjo, but got turned down from, not being able to pass through the trail. But, Yaxhá has incredible views from Temple 216. That's the main one that all the tourists walk up. You look straight over right into Lake Yaxhá. And speaking of the lake, man, we camp right next to the water. You could hear toucans and other wildlife in the area. And then after Yaxhá, we headed to Nacum, which is hands down one of my favorite archaeological sites in Guatemala. During the rainy season, it's a challenge just to get there. I mean, you got mud, you got flooding. Sometimes when
Mhm.
it floods the trail, you got to be worried about crocodiles on the trail. But in the dry season, a high clearance vehicle can make it in two-wheel drive. So, but anyways, man, back to the itinerary.
Yeah, right. It's just so cool to be around those massive temples, right? Poking out above the canopy, spider monkeys swinging overhead. Uh, but before we rolled into Tikal, we stopped in El Remonte to meet up with Feline, and this guy is a legend. He probably needs his own podcast. He knows
Oh
everyone.
man,
He gets all the
for sure.
permits. He makes sure the right people knew you were coming, right?
And just hearing the name Feline makes me laugh. But Feline, dude, he is the glue that makes the pretend trips happen. And how I met him was pure luck and purely by accident. On my very first trip to the pretend, man, I had no idea what I was doing, like honestly. And this is where we get to the point about like you don't have to have a perfect plan, right? My rig looked ready for the jungle, but I didn't know what permits I needed or where to go to get them. And if you know anything about the Peten, you don't just take any random road that goes into the jungle. And for those who don't know the Peten, it's Guatemala's wild northern frontier. For me, it's akin to the Serengeti of Africa. Like it feels that wild inside the jungle. But unlike the Serengeti, the Petén is a place where ancient Maya cities like Tikal and El Mirador, as you mentioned, rise out of this dense forest. Where jaguars still roam and where the Maya Biosphere Reserve protects one of the largest tropical forests left in the Americas. It's beautiful and remote, but man, it's also so unforgiving. You also have to just be careful of illegal logging, the venomous snakes like the Barba Amarilla. I know I've come close to one of those. In fact, I have the Barba Amarilla tattooed on my arm just because it almost bit me. I mean, you literally have like a couple hours to get to the hospital before you're probably no longer on this earth, just to put it bluntly. And some of these roads that are in the jungle, man, they just vanish into the bush. So it's not a place you want to wander without knowing exactly where you're going. But man, it's this magical place of awe and wonder. And the best way to experience it is to go with a local guide. So on my first trip, and this is where it gets kind of funny, so stay with me here. But so I pulled into El Remate, not knowing what I'm doing. And I just start asking around. So I walk into this place called the Hotel Las Gardenias. It's like literally right off the side of the road. They make the best breakfast, to be honest with you. And I just asked them, I'm like, hey man, do you guys know anybody that can take me into the jungle? And so the guy's like, well, how are you getting there? And I'm like, well, I got this 4x4 truck outside. I want to go hit some hard tracks and do some camping. And he's like, all right, I know the perfect guy for you. His name is Feline, right? So I say, all right, cool. So a phone call later, I see this guy across the street in some camouflage pants. He's only got a black tank top on. He's got black curly hair looking like some Jerry curls. He's sweating like crazy. And he's holding this machete like he just came out of the bush, man. And my first thought was like, I put my head down. I was like, oh God, please don't let that be Feline. That cannot be Feline. And mind you, man, I was traveling with two female friends, right? So it was going to be four of us in this two-door GQ Patrol. So I was a little worried. I didn't know what to expect. Sure enough, bro, that dude was Feline. He walked straight into the hotel lobby. He comes up right to me and he's like, his like gibberish Spanish. You know how he talks. So you want to go into the jungle? I know the jungle. We can camp, walk, look for animals, fish. Stay right here. I'll go get my things. Like doesn't even give you a chance to say anything back. But man, little did I know, Feline was a treasure, man. I never go into the jungle without him. Not ever since that time I met him. Like he is like my shadow, man. He takes care of everything, and we've become good friends ever since. He still calls me. We still talk on the phone regularly. And man, he's always asking about you, dude. He's always asking about you because you gave him those camouflage pants one day. Not the same ones I met him in, but the ones I think from Iraq or something, those the older ones. And he refers to you as the El Militar, the military guy.
Oh man, yeah, Feline is awesome, man. He even tries to call me, but unfortunately, I can't speak Spanish, so I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say to him, but yeah, yeah. Too bad we can't just like put him in our pocket, right, and bring him back here with us.
That's
But
funny.
it goes to show you sometimes you just got to show up, and the pieces fall into place, right? A
Yeah.
lot of times we get so hung up on the planning that we get stuck in that phase, and it just it's really hard to take the leap into the adventure side of it and actually head out. But back to the story. So after Yaxhá, we pushed on to Tikal, and that place, man, it's not just big. You know, it's an ancient place. It's one of the most powerful cities, city states in the entire Maya world. And I think I remember, if I remember reading it correctly, it's over 3,000 structures spread across 6,000 or 6 square miles, and some of them are dating back to the 4th century BC.
It's crazy.
At its peak, it was home to maybe 60,000 people, and you can still climb some of the temples that rise up above 2,000 feet over the canopy.
Yeah, man, those stats are crazy. And I think like there's even new technology coming out now with LiDAR, where I think they're discovering more temples
Mm,
around Tikal. And I think the latest estimate I saw, they're thinking like maybe around 100,000, 200,000 people were there. So,
wow.
but it's still crazy, man, to think about that, right?
Yeah.
And all of this is inside the Maya Biosphere Reserve, which itself covers over 2 million hectares, which is about 20% of Guatemala's landmass. And it remains one of the largest protected areas in Central America. And as we were talking about, it's, home to jaguars, tapirs, which are kind of like these elephant, I don't know, pig-looking things, and the scarlet macaw, as well as puma, which I didn't know. And if you remember, Feline kept referring to them as a lion, leon. So when we were
Yeah.
in Antigua, we kept talking about that, right?
Yep.
And of course, they got a bunch of howler monkeys there. So it's a really cool place.
Yeah. Yeah. And from Tikal, we drove just about 12 miles north to Wakshaktoon, which is that's a living community inside the reserve. About 1,000 people there, which is
Hmm.
surrounded by ancient ruins. It's amazing. It's a mix of archaeological sites, working villages. Um, they've been there for generations, and there's a lot of folks that make their living from the forestry, palm harvesting, and then also from guiding. And from Guatemala City, it's around 320 miles, which is about a 4 days drive out there in Guatemala.
Yeah, you think what, 300 miles here in the States? That's what, like an 8 hour drive, I guess, around there,
Yeah.
7 hour. Over there, it
Mm.
feels like 16, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, Washoe Two is a cool place. One of the ruins they have there is I can't remember the name of it, but you can actually they line up perfectly with the summer and winter solstice, so it's
Mm.
really cool to see. But Washoe Two is also where we picked up another local guide. So Feline, again, he was the one that coordinated that, and we set our sights on Dos Lagunas. And if you ever go to Washaktun and look for the avocados, man, they are to die for. I mean, they're massive, man. They look like bowling balls.
Oh,
They taste and slice like butter, silky smooth. And if you're not familiar with Dos Lagunas or like don't see it on a map when you go to Guatemala to check out the ruins, it's like way out there, right? So it's tucked in the northern part of the reserve, close to the Mexican border. I think they actually do some mountain biking trips out there, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, there's no official road to it. It's just muddy tracks that can be impassable in the rainy season. And literally, the only vehicles that enter have 35-inch tires. If you've got any smaller tires, you're just going to get hung up on the ruts. And even the locals, man, with their like 22 RE pickup trucks, all of them are sitting on 35-inch tires. Those trucks never die. They just keep going into that jungle, taking a beating every day. And to get to Dos Lagunas, as we talked about, you can't just show up, right? Like you need a permit from the National Council of Protected Areas, which is called CONAP, to even get in there. But the rules are always changing, so it's best to speak with a local guide before starting any paperwork. But being that we have the lean, we're good on that. So, but that trail, man, oof. It's like you never know what to expect, right? But you do know that there's going to be deep mud ruts. It's going to be a ton of branches just clawing at the rig.
Mhm.
And in fact, for me, the jungle driving really changed my philosophy on overland builds, man. That's where like I really started to make a pivot because you realize that the rooftop tents just become a major liability on those trails. And I learned that the hard way. I would just hit branches and it would totally knock my roof rack off and damage the rooftop tent. And I just got tired of fixing it. But, along the way, on our trip, we'd stop for lunch, right there on the trail, surrounded by mud. And because it's fresh mud, you would look down and there's a jaguar paw print right there. So it's just really cool to see those tracks in the mud, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was awesome seeing that, and those howler monkeys, man, those things sounded like monsters or ghosts in the trees, dude. It was insane.
Yeah.
They're one of the loudest land mammals on the planet. I think males can hit around 140 decibels, and you can definitely hear them from over 3 miles away. It's really insane. All the volume that comes from, um it comes from a special bone in their throat that works like a built-in megaphone. If you didn't know that was the sound, you'd swear, something in the forest was coming alive, and it was definitely coming for you, right? Um, in the jungle, that roar, just like, that's one of the things I'll never forget. You really feel it in your chest before you even ever spot them, even if maybe you never even see them. And every night we were in the rooftop tents. It was hot. It was humid. The jungle never really quits, right? It's always
Nope.
there. You hear the howling monkeys off in the distance, the birds, and then whatever creepy crawlies, the big tarantulas, which we got up and close and personal with, scorpions, and some crazy massive insects I didn't even want to know the names of. Better let those mysteries stay mysteries, right?
That's
Uh,
right, man.
After a few days of that, we dropped into, how was what was the name of the next place that we went to?
Rio Dulce.
Rio
Yeah,
Dulce, yeah.
that Finca
Um,
Tatin.
yeah. It's totally a different world out there. They use boats instead of cars. There's, kids paddling around in dugouts going to school. The whole place is alive with, water traffic, and it's just a unique place.
Yeah, man. And I'll drop a video of the howler monkeys at the end of this podcast so people could hear
Yeah.
the forest coming alive. But yeah, after Rio Dulce, we then went to Peña del Ángel, which
Mhm.
is Angel's Point or Angel's Wing. And man, that place is so awesome. It's such a meaningful place for me in so many ways. But I'm really glad that we made the last minute decision to add that to the itinerary.
Yeah, yeah. It's, beautiful but brutal, right? Huh. That's
Yeah,
where your patrol decided to test us. It blew a CV joint, and it also had a dead starter. We were
yeah.
on a mountain road, winching up in the dirt, uh, track building just to get more traction, but we still made it to the top, and man, that view was totally worth it.
Yeah, there's like a running joke with some of my friends. Don't follow Vince on the trail because he always takes the hardest line. So, but yeah, man, it's incredible, right? Up there, the Peña. It sits high up in the Sierra Las Minas, which is another protected area in Guatemala. It's a protected cloud forest managed by a local organization called Defensores de la Naturaleza, which you think of as defenders of nature. And the cool thing about the Peña del Ángel is another prime jaguar habitat. But unlike the Petén lowlands, this is where you can spot the national bird of Guatemala, which is the resplendent quetzal. If you're lucky, I saw it there once, um, but just far in the distance. But the air is cooler up there. And once the clouds part, you get those sweeping views of, jagged peaks and valleys that feel untouched. And on a really clear day, you could see off into the distance some of the volcanoes that you like Fuego that line near the Guatemala coast.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those places that whenever you're there, you just really stand there and just completely quiet, right? Just taking it all in. Unfortunately, we didn't see the quinzal, the Guatemalan bird, but we definitely heard them, and they have such a distinctive call.
Yeah, they're everywhere up there. Yeah, it's a bummer we didn't get to see it on our trip. After that, we went straight to Antigua for one last night, and then you were on a plane home.
Yeah, yeah. Just under a week, over thousands of miles, 2 rigs, a few breakdowns, and enough memories, man, to last a lifetime.
Yeah, and my patrol's grand finale, right? Rolling back into Shela, Quetzaltenango on the back of a tow truck. Not exactly the heroic return I would have imagined.
Yeah. Hey, at least it made it the climb to, Penadel Angel before it tapped out, man. It was, that was a good run.
Yeah, you're right, man. And you know, that wouldn't be the only time she'd return home on a tow truck. But you know, I'm curious, and I don't think we've actually really talked about this until now. But first off, what were your expectations like going into the trip?
Honestly, I had no idea what I was really walking into. I'd seen your photos and a bunch of your videos, but nothing really prepares you for Guatemala until you really get there, till you're in it. I expected some rough roads and cool sights, but the scale, the remoteness, and how different each place felt, that was truly a surprise for me. I also had full faith and trust in you.
Oh
I knew
no.
you'd, deliver a good time, and we can't forget that cold peanut butter, right?
Don't get me started on that, dude. Or the lost bird, right?
Yeah.
All right, man. But before we lose our audience some Dion Cole stand up, back to back to the podcast. So what was the highlight of the trip for you?
So that's a tough one, but I'd say the first night in Dos Lagunas, we just battled through mud all day, right? We set up
Yeah,
camp in the middle of the jungle. It was dark. There was howler monkeys already kicking off at dusk. The moment, we were hot, sweaty, exhausted, completely surrounded by wild, right?
yeah,
It was unlike anything I've ever experienced, man. And then there was the low Carancha, the famous alligator
oh yeah,
that lived in the lagoon, right? The locals told us that she'd been taken down by supposedly a jaguar. A
yeah.
reminder that out there, even the apex predators aren't safe, right? It was one of those moments where you really feel how raw and untamed that place truly is.
Yeah, it's right about La Coroncha, man. You know, a lot of people used to like feed that crocodile bread, so it just became used to like coming close to the camp, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? But yeah, I think I remember reading recently that um a jaguar had taken her. But so what did it feel like actually driving in the jungle? I mean, that was your first time doing it.
Yeah, definitely. You don't get to experience that stuff around here, it's intense, right? You're not just steering, you're reading the ground, you're listening to the truck, you're watching for tree line movement. One wrong line and you're basically stuck axle deep, right? And you've got no cell signal out there. So self-recovery is everything. Back home, even in our most remote trails, usually you have a way out or someone nearby. In the jungle, you're on your own.
That's true, man. And actually, on our trip, we didn't, you know, I hate to say this, we didn't have any like satellite communication. I think it was after that expedition we did together that started taking one with me, a satellite phone.
Mhm.
But you know, I don't think you mentioned like what were you driving in the jungle? Because I was in the patrol, but why don't you tell our users what you were driving and how you approached the trip?
Yeah, so I was in your FJ Cruiser. It had a, mild lift, 33s. It was outfitted with a winch, some basic recovery gears. I was really familiar with the rig. It also came with a rear locker. It's got A-track that also helps out a lot. My approach was to keep it simple, right? And not overdrive the conditions. You can't muscle your way through that terrain. You've got to really be patient. You got to pick those smart lines and you got to really respect the environment. And since I didn't speak Spanish, I really relied on you and Feline for communications. Lots of pointing and smiling and letting the locals take the lead. I think the most Spanish word I said was baño because when I had to go to the bathroom, I had to go and I would run into a store and just yelling baño,
Uh,
baño. So yeah.
Oh man, it's even I speak fluent Spanish, but sometimes it's hard to understand Feline. So, but all right, man. So one last key takeaway. Let us know what that is, and would you do it again?
Yeah, so key takeaway, um, preparation matters, right? But flexibility is everything. Um, Out there, you can't really plan for every challenge. So being able to adapt is what really makes or breaks those types of trips. And would I do it again? Absolutely. Seeing those ruins in Tikal and Washoktun, you can't really, knowing people built them over thousands of years ago, man, in the middle of nowhere or the middle of the jungle. It really sticks to you. It's I would definitely go back, man. You can't really experience that anywhere else.
Yeah, man, it's so true. And, when I went with you, that was my second time. And eventually those trips kind of just became like a Misogi for me. If you don't know Misogi in its original form, Misogi is an ancient Japanese Shinto ritual for purification. Often it's done by immersing yourself in cold water. We definitely didn't do that, but it's meant to cleanse the body and spirit. And these days, it also comes to mean doing like one big hard thing each year, like an intimidating challenge, which, Michael Easter says you have to have a 50% chance of failure. And by doing these Misogi challenges, you actually like push yourself to the edge of your limit. So, as we talked about in the first podcast, you've got adventure, exploration, and then at the end of that is discovery. So, doing a Misogi, you just discover a little bit more about yourself. And so, for us, on this trip, that Misogi was really venturing into a world surrounded by jaguars, howler monkeys, ancient ruins, and the occasional tow truck, right? It had everything. But honestly, man, I don't think there's anywhere else in the world, and I mean that, where you could 4x4 all day and end at a campsite with a 1,000-year-old ruin right next to you. I mean, like you were hinting to this. That's what makes these types of trips just so special. And it's what kept me going back after you left.
Yeah, and the jungles, they're never the same twice, right? Trails change, rivers shift, and you've got no cell signal. So out there, you really feel your mortality around every corner. Um, from the Barba Armadillo snake to the jaguar to that hornet that can sting you and collapse your lungs. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and yet somehow it's the most alive you ever feel when you're surrounded by like your mortality constantly, right? It's staring you in the face. But there's this deep connection in with nature when that happens, right? Like where time just feels like it stands still and you feel both invincible and immortal at the same time.
Yeah, exactly, man. Trips like that really remind you why we do this, why we chase the road less traveled, and why we chase where the pavement ends, man.
Yeah, and speaking of why we do this, next time we're switching gears. We're diving into our Overland vehicle build philosophies, where we started, what we thought we needed, and how that's completely evolved over time.
Yeah, because the rigs that we drive today aren't just about looking good in a parking lot, man. They're
Yeah.
uh they're about real world capability, reliability, and making sure you can actually finish the trip you start, right?
Yeah, so if you've ever wondered how to set up your vehicle for long haul adventures, or maybe you've been thinking about changing your build, make sure to tune in to that next episode.
Yeah, we've got stories, we've got lessons learned, and probably a few mistakes you can avoid.
Yeah, so that's the next time on Where the Pavement Ends. But if you want to see the jungle, the rigs, and everything we talked about today, I've got 2 YouTube videos from Terrell's trip that you won't want to miss. They're packed with footage from deep in the Guatemalan jungle, from muddy trails to Mayan ruins, and I've linked them both in the description. So go watch those next, and I'll see you on the next episode. And don't forget to get outside to where the pavement ends.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.